Hey there, art students. So today I'm going to show you some of the basic steps for how to create a sewn stuffed character that are inspired by the Ugly Doll characters. So you're going to be creating your own design, creating a pattern for that design, and then using fabric pieces to sew and finally to stuff your character. So there are a few basic steps that you're going to need to do to get to this final stage. The first step is to create a design. Since the fabric pieces that we're going to be using are 9 by 12 pieces of felt, they're already pre-cut, so we are going to make sure that our pattern fills up this whole space. So go ahead and grab a piece of white computer paper, and on that computer paper you're just going to use a pencil to create a very simple design. Now the rules for this design, there's a few that we're going to follow. Rule number 1, your design should take up as much of the paper as possible, because as you stuff your character, but since it's bending, it will get smaller. We want to make it as big as possible, so you want to basically touch all 4 sides of the paper. Rule number 2, nothing that you create can be skinnier than 3 fingers. So if you're going to put your 3 fingers in that design drawing, if it's any smaller than 3 fingers, it's a no-go. It's going to be too small to be able to stuff. You won't be able to get the stuffing in there at the end. So for example, if you see how skinny his little top antenna is, when I flatten that out, it is 3 fingers wide. But because it is round, it gets much, much skinnier. If I had it any skinnier than that, I wouldn't be able to stuff it. Same thing with this antenna. You can see the base of the antenna, 3 fingers wide, so that you can get the stuffing in there. So keep those 2 rules in mind as you stuff. Think about this as a simple outline design. You will be able to add things to your character, but the basic outline should be just that, basic. Let's get started. So you have your plain white paper. You can see that the stuffed shape I make, the outline of it should fill that whole paper. So when you're drawing your design, remember to try to keep it simple. I like to start with pencil first in case, of course, you make any mistakes, and then trace later. So I'm going to start with a head here that has some kind of wiggly tentacles going on the head. Come around for a neck. I'm going to add 2 arms that come up and down, up and down. And then I'm going to add a face. So a nice big eyeball, and he's going to be like a little kind of goofy smile. So I'm going to look at this. Now it's the 3-finger test. Make sure 3 fingers fit. So 3 fingers should fit in each space. Oh, that one's a little bit too skinny. Let me widen that one up. Good, good, good. Too skinny. You can see that my 3 fingers do not fit in there. Go ahead and erase it. And then just make it a little wider. Check it again, and now it definitely fits. So once you have your design ready, you can grab your black marker to trace it in black marker. You're going to trace all the way around your character. Trace all the way around. Try to stay as close to on your line as you can. Once you have your character traced, this is going to be your pattern. So as soon as your character is traced, you can grab your scissors and cut that character out. There is my cutout character. So this is just a pattern. Since it is a pattern, we're going to transfer it onto a piece of felt. Now you can choose any color felt. You would just line it up. If you chose something dark, I would choose maybe a piece of white chalk to trace around it. Or if you choose something lighter, you can go ahead and trace that with pencil. So I've already traced my character onto this piece of felt here. And you can see that my character fits in the space. Now, when you're tracing, you want to make sure that you get right on the line. Since our character has a front side and a back side, you are going to need to do this 2 times. Do not try to cut them together. When you're using paper, you can often trace and cut together, but the fabric will slide. So trace around your character, and then using a nice sharp pair of scissors, you're going to cut out your character on the line. You can save your scraps for later to maybe use them as a detail. If you're using more than one color felt, scraps are a great idea because then you'll be able to see it. Otherwise, in school, we usually choose from the scrap bin, which has everyone's scraps in it. So I like to collect all of the scraps and put them in a scrap bin. So here we are, just making sure you can see I'm cutting as exactly on the line as I can, because both of your pieces need to match. Now, this is a part that gets very tricky for a lot of my students. Cutting out 2 pieces that are the same, especially because the cutting can be difficult on felt. So make sure that your pieces are cut out completely, your scraps are off to the side, and in the end, you should have 2 pieces that when you lay them on top of each other, they should match exactly. There should be no area where one is kind of hanging out further than the other. So you can see there's no pieces. If I flip it over here, I do see a little bit of it not lining up. So I'm just going to make a mark on that one and trim it off. Okay, and there we are. For right now, you're only going to need one of these pieces. So you can remove the other piece and place it off to the side, because only one of these pieces is going to be the face of your character. The other piece is going to be the back side, where it won't get any of the details like the eyes or the mouth. So go ahead and put one off to the side. You're gonna need to grab your tracer again, because you need to have your tracer for the pieces. So please use your scissors to cut out any details that you've added to your character, whether it's an eyeball or a stomach or a mouth, whatever it is, you're gonna cut those out. So here's my eyeball. Now I can't cut out the mouth because it's just a line, but I can cut out the teeth. So I'm gonna make sure that I have those available for me also. Your tracer can go off to the side. You're going to grab some scraps to cut out your pieces. So for example, here's a scrap of white paper or white fabric. I'm going to put my teeth tracers on there. Since these are very small, I might want to make them into 2 separate pieces, or even maybe make them a little bit larger. The smaller they are, the harder they're going to be to sew. So I'm going to make these teeth a little bit bigger than what I did originally. There we go. Same as before, you're going to cut those out. Okay. And I've already cut out an eye shape for myself out of another piece of pink scrap paper. Now on my eye, I had a pupil. You can do another piece of scrap for that and sew it inside, but I like to use buttons as my pupil. I think it adds a nice texture. So I'm going to be adding a button onto there, and I will show you how to sew buttons on in the next video. So for right now, you should have your character ready to go. You can set it up to see what it will look like and see if you want to add any other details before we begin sewing. If you are ready, this completes making your pattern. You have your front piece with your details. You have your back side, which is just going to hang out for a little while. And when you're ready, go to the next video and I will show you how to start attaching pieces and sewing.